Thank you for joining this webinar about renting in Japan today. We will look at how the renting process works in Japan, what are the initial fees, what are the renting options open to foreign residents, and more. This webinar is part of a series of free webinars that I offer to support foreign residents. My name is Dr. Isabel Grenon, and I'm your host for today. So when you register for the webinar, you could submit some questions, and I will try to answer each of these as best as I can as we go along. So there's these questions, 7, and then there's a few more here. So I will get back to these one at a time. In addition to providing answers to previous questions, I will explain the housing options available to foreign residents, the requirement to rent depending on the type of housing, the initial fees, what's a guarantor, when you need one, and who can it be, parking and other additional fees. We will discuss other considerations such as how to search for rental online, how to read the rental listing, why location distance to train station matters, how to find rentals that accept pets, what you should know about insulation and earthquake building resistance in Japan, and where to get started. What's the rental and renewal process like? Where to find help and various resources. So that's a bit of an overview of what we have today. I have a disclaimer and disclosure today. The webinar today is, I'm not plagiarizing. It's the book I wrote, but it's a summary of chapter 1 of the Japan Guide from Renting to Rice Cooking. So there's more details in the book, but this is a kind of a condensed version of chapter 1 of the book. So please note also that the goal of the webinar is to provide general information and should not be relied on for legal advice. And also, I do not endorse any of the business I may mention in this webinar and on my website. I don't include any affiliated links. I don't do affiliated links. I don't have any sponsor or any ads. So everything I refer is to the best of my knowledge or reliable, trustworthy provider. But I'm not responsible if they turn out to not be so reliable. I'm happy to tell you also that I'm preparing the second edition of the guidebook to be released probably early 2026 in PDF format this time, which will be accessible directly from my website and maybe later as a paper copy and ebook as well. So there are at least 4 different types of housing options open to foreign residents in Japan, and it's important to distinguish them because their requirements and initial fees are not the same. The first options are schools like universities or employers that offer a limited number of rentals for their students or employees. For these, you usually need to apply by a certain deadline every year, maybe around November or December, and the rental contract will likely start from April 1st. I will say a lot of probably or possibly in this webinar because what I'm giving you here are general guidelines. Oh, by the way, even if your employer doesn't have any rentals they can offer you, they may be able to offer you a stipend to help you pay for your rent or afford better options. My last employer had that, and they will give you a little bit of money every month to help you pay the rent. Second option, I call them the foreigner-friendly options, not because they're open to renting to foreigners, but because they are specifically designed for foreign tourists and residents. And so they usually offer many fully furnished and ready to move in options. The options range from a bed in a dormitory to share accommodations to luxurious family homes. They also range widely in prices, but tend to be on the pricier side, especially for long-term stay. But, they include more too. Right? There are also 2 types of subsidized housing, so partially paid by the government, those managed by the semi-public agency Urban Renaissance, and those managed by a city. These usually offer the best quality cost ratio options for long-term foreign residents. However, as we'll see shortly, it's for long-term stay resident only. The very vast majority of rentals available in Japan or what I will refer to as the private rentals, which are owned by an individual or a business. While some of them are open to renting to foreigners, the difference is that with foreigner-friendly agencies is that they are less likely to have fully furnished options and usually have higher initial fees and a stricter application process we will discuss in a few slides. So if you are searching through a website, be aware that many listings for private rentals may not be available anymore. It is recommended to inquire directly to the real estate agencies so they can tell you when a new rental becomes available before it even gets listed. That's what happened last time I rented. So in Japan, many rentals are offered not furnished. But when they are furnished, they're usually fully furnished, sometimes like this one. Can you see the ladder in the left picture? This is where the ladder leads to the bedroom in the loft area. In English, this would be referred to as a studio, right? But in Japanese, it's called a 1R, so it means one room with a loft. Now, if you decide to go for an apartment that is not furnished, here are some things to keep in mind. Not furnished in Japan can mean totally bare, and I mean absolutely nothing in it, like no curtains. Two sets of railings to attach the curtains are usually pre-installed in all windows, though, so you can just buy pre-made curtains at shops like Nitori. Just make sure they are made for the railing installed in the rental, which are usually like the ones shown in the pictures here, with the little hook, you see. Not furnished can also mean no lights are included. I'm not kidding. But the light sockets, as on the left picture, should already be there. So you just need to buy the lights and fix the light into the socket. You shouldn't need any tools. Usually it's just a push and twist sort of system, but you may need something to step on to reach the ceiling. So yes, not furnished can mean you have to bring or buy your own lights. Not furnished can also mean that there is no heater or air conditioner unit, which we call aircon in Japan. It's a unit that can both heat and cool down a room, and it's fixed on the ceiling here. Well, near the ceiling, sorry, on the wall, near the ceiling. When a rental mentioned the aircon is included, it might mean only one is included for the living and dining area, while there are none in any of the bedrooms. So make sure to clarify this before signing your contract. The requirements to rent in Japan vary by type of housing. To apply for a school or employer-provided rental, you will need, of course, to be registered at that school or be employed by that employer. For foreigner-friendly agencies, there is usually no other requirements than an advance payment, usually by credit card. For subsidized housing, these are usually reserved for long-term residents, and so they might require your visa to be for a minimum of 1 year or more, and may require a minimum salary, though I'm told it is rather low, the minimum salary. To rent a private rental, you will need to provide several documents, such as a copy of your visa, residence card, but also proof of employment and salary, or proof of school enrollment, and any scholarship or financial support you have. It usually also requires a guarantor, which I will talk about in a minute, and listing everyone who will be moving with you, like your spouse and children. So to summarize so far, there are 4 types of housing in Japan. There are housing options provided by schools and employers, and to find out about them, you'll need to inquire directly at your school or employer. For the foreigner-friendly agencies, they're managed by separate agencies, and you can book them directly online from anywhere in the world, but you will need to probably a credit card to make the payment to reserve the rental. There's 2 types of subsidized housings. There are rentals managed by Urban Renaissance, which is a semi-public agency, and you have to inquire directly on the UR website. And there are rental managed by the city, and you have to inquire at the city for those ones. Finally, the vast majority of housings in Japan are owned by private owners, whether it's a person or business. but they're usually all managed by real estate agencies. So you inquire at the real estate agent or agencies. There's a number of growing bilingual real estate agents who can help you finding something you like and deal with the real estate agency who manage the rental. If you want to fully furnish, ready to move in options, foreigner-friendly agency is probably the best way to go. Nowadays, however, I'm told more and more private rentals, especially in Tokyo, may offer partly furnished rentals, but like including the lights and maybe the curtains, but you probably have to register for the utilities yourself. For short-term options, again, foreigner-friendly housing are probably your best and maybe your only options beside hotels and Airbnbs. And keep in mind, except for the housing provided by the schools and employers and the foreigner-friendly agencies, the other housing options will usually require a minimum income from a Japanese employer or proof of sufficient funds in a Japanese bank account. Finally, school and employer provided housing will likely have a specific deadline to apply every year, while the foreigner-friendly agencies and the private rentals, you can apply any time of the year, as long as it's available, right? And finally, the subsidized housing options provided by urban renaissance in the cities uh, may have waiting lists. So you need to apply in its first, I mean, you have to wait. And note that since the fiscal year in Japan starts on April 1st, most people tend to move to a new home around March, April every year. So our first question from you was, are there short-term, like 3 to 6 months rentals available to foreigners? And the answer, yes, there is. Nowadays, there are a lot of Airbnbs for short-term to maybe a month or two, which are usually well-maintained, very clean, and of course, all furnished. You also have many short to long-term options through one of the many foreigner-friendly agencies. And they usually provide really good service, although the price can be a bit expensive. I will show you later how to find and contact these agencies. For sure, the other options will not be possible for short-term rentals, as they usually require at least a one-year contract. Second question, can you rent on a monthly basis? With the foreigner-friendly, maybe it's possible. I actually saw some rentals the other day that were offering month-to-month rental, but not all of them can be rented this way. And some rentals may get booked well in advance, so you may need to reserve them in advance for the entire duration of your stay, or reserve short term and be ready to move to another rental the next month if you can extend renting at the same place. Just so you know, this year Japan has seen a huge number of incoming tourists, and as a result, places like Airbnbs and short-term rentals especially in popular tourist areas like Tokyo, Osaka, and Kyoto, are probably fully booked well in advance these days. So just so you know. So the initial fees to rent in Japan can vary widely and can range from the equivalent of 2 months' rent to pay upfront to 9 months' rent, which you'll need to pay upfront when signing the contract. The initial fee required for housing provided by your school employer should be minimum, probably equivalent to 1 month's rent for deposit. Some employer may not ask for any deposit, but instead require you to pay for redoing the interior of the unit upon leaving, which may include redoing the wallpaper, tatami floor, etc. So you just pay for it. You don't have to do it. The initial fee for housing managed by foreigner-friendly agencies should also be minimum, probably including a deposit. While some rentals may not include any deposit, they will likely include a cleaning fee or a moving out fee. The subsidized housing usually require the equivalent of, I think it's 1 or 2 months deposits, and that's it. For the private rentals, these can include a lot of initial fees. We'll look at them in turn. So there are various types of initial fees you may encounter when renting a private rental in Japan. The fee you will likely be required to pay is a real estate fee, chukai asenryo in Japanese. This is usually equivalent to 1 month of your new rent. You most likely have to pay a deposit or cleaning fee. This fee may be refundable in part or in full. We will talk about this actually in more detail in the webinar in February, which focus on tenants' rights and responsibilities. We don't have time to go through it today, but the name of the deposit and its amount can vary per region. So we will look at this in just a minute. Next, for renting a private rental, you will usually need a guarantor. The guarantor system is called Hosho Seido in Japanese. Sorry for my mispronunciation, maybe. And we'll get back to it on the next slide. And finally, if you choose a private rental, you may be required to give some money to the landlord as a gift. So, skipping the historical background for the gift money, the important is to understand that this is legal and not optional, but part of the initial mandatory fees. So when choosing a private rental in Japan, you will most likely be required to have a guarantor. The guarantor is a person or organization responsible to pay for your rent or other fees if you fail to pay. Now, keep in mind that if the guarantor company has to pay for your rent on your behalf, you are still liable to pay back the guarantor company for the amount they paid for you. As to who can be your guarantor, not everyone can be your guarantor, even if they speak fluent Japanese, have permanent residency, and a good income. The guarantor can only be a person with Japanese citizenship or a Japanese company. It can be your employer, maybe, or a close relative who is also a Japanese citizen, or it can be a guarantor company. If you hire a guarantor company, it will usually cost the equivalent of 1 month's rent. Again, this is not refundable. You should also note that the landlord has the final say on who they will accept as a guarantor. If you can get the type of guarantor the landlord can accept, your application will be rejected. As I mentioned before, the initial fee when renting a private rental in Japan vary per region. In the Kanto region, that's Tokyo and surrounding prefectures, the first initial fee you can expect is a deposit, usually called shikikin in Kanto area. The deposit is usually equivalent to 1 month's rent or 2 months if you have pets. Another common initial fee in the Kanto area is called key money or reikin in Japanese. This is a gift to the landlord and is non-refundable. Again, this fee can be equivalent to 1 month's rent or sometimes 2 months if you have pet. So if you have pet, you can expect 3 months for the deposit and key money. In addition, you'll have to pay the real estate agent, usually the equivalent of another month's rent, and that is again non-refundable. And if you're allowed and have to pay for a guarantor company, that is usually equivalent to 1 more month's rent. And you'll also be required to pay for the first month of rent when signing the contract. So in total, when renting a private rental in the Kanto area, you can expect to have to pay upfront the equivalent of 5 to 6 months rent, and only the deposit may be refundable in part or in full, but sometimes it's not refunded at all. The key money is only required in the Kanto region, but don't get too excited yet. In other regions, like in Kansai region, Kyoto, with Kyoto, Nara, and Osaka, Chugoku region with Hiroshima, Chubu region, the area where Mount Fuji is, and Kyushu area with Oita, you may encounter something called guarantee money, hoshoukin in Japanese. Note that guarantee money is not the same as fee for a guarantor company. The guarantee money is a kind of deposit, which includes a gift money called a non-refundable restoration fees, shikihiki in Japanese. This restoration fee is a gift because the landlord will keep this amount even if the cost for cleaning and repair when you move out turns out to cost less than the amount given for restoration. And the rest of the guarantee money will be used by the landlord to cover any additional cleaning and restoration costs. If there's anything left from this amount, in theory, the balance should be returned to you. The guarantee money I read can be equivalent to 10 months, but nowadays, apparently, landlords tend to ask between the equivalent of 3 to 6 months rent. The amount for the restoration fee should be determined in advance on the contract and can vary widely from one landlord to another, I expect. So in addition to these fees, you can expect to pay the real estate agent fee again and maybe another month for the use of a guarantor company if needed. So in total, including payment of the first month's rent in these region, you may have to pay the equivalent of 6 to 9 months rent when renting a private rental. This is for private rental in one of these regions. Now, not every landlord will charge all these fees though, so it's worth searching and widening your search. Now, I don't want to discourage you, but there are additional fees you may encounter also, such as parking fees. When renting an apartment, the parking fee, if there is any, is usually not free, but it's also optional. So if you don't need it, you don't pay for it. If you're renting what is called a mansion, which is basically apartment building made of concrete of at least 3 floors, you can expect to pay a monthly maintenance or management fee. These fees have to be paid in addition to your rent and any parking fees, and they are not optional. And when you rent a private rental, the contract is usually for 1 or 2 years. And every time the contract is renewed, you'll have to pay a renewal fee, which should be equivalent to 1 month's rent. Most rental will also require you to pay for insurance. There's a full name for it, but this I think Kansai Hoken translate as fire insurance. This insurance is for the owner's property in case of fire or other damage. In particular, it won't cover your personal items. If you want to insure your personal items, you will have to choose a wider coverage, which is possible, and pay accordingly. But if you only take the minimum mandatory insurance, it's not super expensive, but it's usually paid on an annual basis or every 2 years, depending on your insurance contract. Some rentals may not ask for any key money, but instead ask for a lock exchange fee. As far as I understand, it's just another name for gift money. Finally, while a rental may not ask for initial deposit, they may ask instead for a moving out fee to pay for professional cleaning service and for repairs. In all cases, if you damage a property, any type of rental property, leave anything behind, or leave the premises in less than a pristine condition, you are expected to pay for cleaning fees, repair, or disposing fees. Again, I will talk about this in more details in the webinar in February. To sum up this part, I know it's a lot to take in. So the initial fee you'll need to pay upfront when signing a contract in Japan vary by type of housing. You can expect, no matter which rental you use, to pay some sort of cleaning fees through a deposit fee or a cleaning fee or moving out fee. The gift money is something you may only see with private rentals and only in some regions, and not all landlords ask for it. Real estate fee, again, is only paid for private rentals because they are the only one managed by real estate agencies. And what is it? Oh, record guarantor, sorry. And only if you rent a private rental, you will have to pay for a guarantor company if you can provide any other acceptable guarantor. Once again, I want to emphasize that the landlord has the final say on who they will accept as your guarantor. Some landlord won't accept a guarantor company. For the monthly rental fee, this is very general and will vary per region, but all things considered equal, you can expect that school employers provided housing, the UR housing, and the public housing will offer the lowest rental options, although low is not always super low, especially for the UR agency, I'm told. In contrast, the foreigner-friendly rentals, while they can be the most convenient, they also tend to be the most expensive. But they provide support in English and other languages. The cost per month, and they don't have any initial fees, right? Private rentals, well, there's all the range there. You can go from quite cheap to most expensive on the market. So someone asked me the other day, since private rentals can be so expensive with all the initial fees, why would any foreign resident wants to rent a private rental? Private rentals may be more expensive at first, but the monthly cost is compared to equivalent foreigner-friendly rentals might be a little cheaper. And there's also much more options in the rental properties. So it may actually provide a better and cheaper long-term options in some case. And you can, furnish the place the way you want. You can make changes. So far, so good. So another question from you was, how much money do I need upfront to rent an apartment? So the answer is it depends. It depends on the type of property you're renting and the region where you're renting. If renting a private rental in the Kanto area, you can expect a budget for 5 to 6 months rent to pay upfront. If renting in some other regions, particularly in Kansai region, you may have to pay 6 to 9 months upfront, most of which being non-refundable. If renting any other type of rentals in any other regions, you can expect a minimum of 1 to 3 months to pay upfront. So you might be wondering at this point, is there anything you can negotiate when it comes to renting in Japan? Can you negotiate who can be your guarantor, for instance? Usually not, as I said before. Can you negotiate any of the initial fees? Usually not. You can try, but if there are many people interested in the same rental, they will just pass you over and just offer the rent to the next person in line who's ready to pay for all the initial fees. So how about the monthly rental cost? This is something you may be able to negotiate a little. I put the yellow circle here for maybe. If you're renting a mansion apartment, there are usually maintenance or management fees to pay in addition to your rent every month. And these are not decided by the owner, so they cannot really be negotiated either. The parking fees are usually not decided by the landlord either, and so they're usually not negotiable. One thing you may be able to negotiate is the exact starting date of the rental contract. In Japan, the rental contract can begin and end any day of the month you want. And the rent for that month will be prorated according to the number of days included in your contract. So this means you can negotiate the exact date from which your contract will start, but you won't be able to get the key of your rental until this date, right? And while you can negotiate the exact starting date of your rental contract, you may not be able to negotiate the starting month. Most landlords will accept no more than 1 or maybe 2 months from the date you signed the contract. So you cannot sign the contract for 6 months later, for example. Now, you may have heard people say you cannot negotiate in Japan, it's not in the culture, but that's not entirely true. You cannot bargain, like haggling back and forth, but you can negotiate, at least in some contexts. You can try to negotiate the monthly rental fee, for example, by saying something like, I'm sorry, the rent is a bit too expensive for me. And then the real estate agent probably will go and ask the landlord, can you reduce the rent a little bit for that person? And then the landlord might say, okay, I can maybe reduce by 10,000 yen. And then it's up to you now at this point to take it or leave it, right? They probably won't go lower than that. This is their last offer. Okay, so it's insisting is not in the culture, but asking, is it possible to have a discount or something? It's fine, right? Yeah, if it's something negotiable. Now, to search for a private rental in Japan, you can go to a real estate website like this one. There's many. This is a screenshot of the searching menu on Wagaya, Japan. You can narrow down the monthly rental price according to your budget, then choose the layout you want. The number, as in 2 LDK, represents the number of bedrooms, and the LDK stands for living room, dining room, and kitchen. So a 2 LDK is a 2-bedroom apartment. And they will also always tell you the age of the building. This may seem odd to you, but it's an important information related to insulation and earthquake resistance building codes, which I will talk about in a few slides. Next, you have to indicate your preferred walking distance to the nearest station in minutes. The price of a rental usually increases the closer it is to the train station. At the bottom of the page, you can select whether you need a rental that accepts pets, whether you want a rental that does not require any guarantor, or no key money. Remember, this is a gift you give to the landlord. You can also check this box if you want to look for short-term options, although they're usually few on real estate websites, or ask to narrow down your search to only furnished options. So it's very detailed. So question from you was how to find rentals that accept pets, don't require a guarantor. So for pets, you can simply select the option pets okay, or on some website, it says pets negotiable. And to find rentals that don't require a guarantor at all, you can select the option no guarantor. No guarantor. And note that the foreigner-friendly UR residence and public housing options, as well as the school and employer provided by a school and employer, should not require any guarantor, but they may not accept pets either, right? Here's an example of a rental listing in Japan, which I have modified for privacy, so don't think it's not the fully accurate. Here's an enlarged view of the top left of the rental description. It says here it's a mansion type of apartment, so you can expect some maintenance fee. You have here the total size, the total size inside the premises in square meter. Information about in which floor the apartment is. So how many floors there and how many floors there are in the building. The information indicates it's on the second floor of a 23-floor building. By the way, quick note about floor number in Japan. The first floor is the ground floor, and the floor above the ground floor is considered the second floor. This is the same as in Canada and the US, but different from Europe and other countries where the ground floor is considered floor 0. In Japan, the ground floor is always floor 1, first floor. The layout of this rental is a 2 LDK, so a 2-bedroom apartment. Now, for initial fees, it requires the equivalent of 1 month of deposit, it says here, and 1 month in key money. And you have to pay insurance. And you must use a guarantor company designated by the landlord as your guarantor. And finally, we have the age of the building here, which is March 2019, so built 6 years ago. In the descriptions of the amenities and facilities included in that rental, we can see here that the air conditioning is included. Remember, this is also for heating. But there might just be one, right? Pets are not allowed. There's no balcony facing south, so less sunshine, no internet included, and no lights. I was not kidding when I say lights are often not included. Lights are not included here, it is says specifically. Unfortunately, we're not done with the initial fees for this rental. To rent this unit, you will also have to pay 1 month's rent to the real estate agency. And also the tenant support fee here, I expect it's the maintenance fee since this is a mansion. So 22,000 yen more per month, every month on top of the rental costs. And it says here there's no parking space available. So if you have a car, you will need to pay for parking elsewhere. So far, how much does rental require initial fees? We saw it requires 1 month deposit, 1 month in key money, 1 month in real estate agent, most likely 1 month for the guarantor company, which you have to use, and plus 1 month, the first month of rent. So this is the equivalent of 5 months rent to pay upfront. Plus, don't forget that you have to pay for the insurance and you have to pay for the maintenance fee, the 22,000 yen on top of your rent. And of course, that doesn't include buying all your furniture, your lights, appliances, curtains, and maybe additional aircon. So for private rental in the Kanto region, Tokyo and surrounding cities, 5 months initial fee is, I would say, pretty much the norm. But you can search, as we saw before, there are rentals that don't require these fees, but the choice are more limited. And also, it says here the contract is for 2 years, and fees to renew the contract after 2 years is the equivalent of another month rent. The last section of the listing here will tell you what the rental include. Like there's an elevator, that's good. Parking space? No, it's a bicycle parking space. It's just for your bicycle. And then it says here the rental is open to 4 years, so it confirmed you can apply. For short term, it says NG here. I had to look online for this one. Apparently, it stands for no good, which means not possible. And just to confirm, it mentions here that you have to pay a fee for the guarantor company. So it's usually 1 month. And just back to the apartment information, you always see mentioned the number of minutes required to reach the nearest station. So 7 minute walk to the station, 12 minutes walk to the station. Sometimes though, especially if you search in Japanese, be careful because sometimes the minutes are counted the minute by bus from the nearest station, and then you have the minute walking to the bus stop. So it's not always, so sometimes they're really far. All right. So rentals are listed according to the walking distance or bus distance, and the closest a rental is to a train station, the more popular and also expensive it usually is. Here you have the distance by foot from Miyamai-daira Station in Kawasaki City to my favorite onsen, a luxurious hot spring spa in Japan. Is really great. I highly recommend it. It's not affiliated link. They don't pay me for that. So it's a short distance, 5 minutes. But keep in mind that in Japan in particular, it's a country made of lots of volcanoes. You can expect lots of hills and or stairs in many areas. So the spa here is only 5 minutes walk from the station, but you have those steep stairs on the way. And the stairs and hills can be particularly painful if you're going by bicycle or with a stroller. Now let's talk about the address system in Japan. Unlike any other countries I've been to in Japan, except for major highways and big roads, the streets don't have names. And there are often no numbers on the buildings either. Instead, buildings have names. So, how can you find your way around? It's actually quite difficult, even for Japanese people, including taxi drivers and delivery people. In my experience, they always had to call me, "Where are you? I cannot find your address." You can see here the address of the spa again in Japanese because it's a public building. So I use this address with the English translation below. So the first number, 216006, is the postal code, as you may have guessed. Then you have the prefecture, Kanagawa Prefecture, then the city, Kawasaki, then the ward, Miyamai, then Miyamai Daira area, followed by three numbers, 2, 13, and 3. So what is that? So what you need to understand is, so I was told, the address system in Japan is based on divisions, the original divisions into rice fields, which have been divided to build houses and other buildings. So I tried to illustrate this for you in a way that it's easy to understand, I hope. So you have the prefectures, right? It's kind of a big area like Kanagawa. Then inside Kanagawa, you have many cities, including Kawasaki. Now, Kawasaki has many wards, including Miyamae Ward. And inside Miyamae Ward, you have a smaller area called Miyamae Daira. And this area has been divided into several pieces of land with number 1, 2, 3. And now we see that the address says it's in number 2. Now, inside number 2, it's been divided into smaller pieces, again labeled 1, 2, 3. And the spot is in number 13 here. And inside number 13, there's a unique number to identify a specific building, like here is 3. So that's how it works. And the numbers are not necessarily consecutive in the streets. I built a house and they divided the land, so or number didn't follow the number before. So it was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then they would jump to 26, 29, and anyway, so it's not consecutive number necessarily. So it's very hard to find address in Japan. So instead they write the name. So if it's you, my name, we'll put Grenon on the house, so people will know, okay, this is Grenon's house. Now I promise I will get back to this. Why is the age of the building mentioned on the rental listings in Japan? And in the listing information is provided the age. In a nutshell, the construction codes related to insulation in Japan were updated in 1996. Buildings in Japan tend to not be super insulated, even those built after 1996, especially from a Canadian point of view. And wooden buildings built before 1996 in particular most likely have little to no insulation left because of the high level of humidity in Japan. So concrete buildings generally provide a better insulation, even if built before 1996. And as for the earthquake-resistant building codes were updated several times after they were introduced in 1924, with a major update in 1981. Many of the buildings built between 1950 and 1981 collapsed after an earthquake of magnitude 6 on the Shindo scale because the construction codes before 1981 did not include any provisions against earthquake of intensity above 5. So many people choose to not rent in any building built before 1981. Foreigners tend to be attracted to cute old Japanese wooden house, but keep in mind that they may be a fire hazard and not protect your family when a big earthquake occurs. There are about, I think, 1,500 earthquakes per year in Japan, but of course you won't feel most of them. They're far or they're really weak. And I'm afraid there's so much to say about this earthquake resistance and how it works, but I don't really have time today. So you can check actually in my book in chapter 2, you have much more information about this written in a very easy to understand way, I think. So let's move to what is the rental process like in Japan? First, of course, you need to find a place you're interested in. And if you're renting something through foreigner-friendly agencies, you can do everything online. You have pictures and everything. If you found a private rental you're interested in, you will probably need to visit in person. Many real estate agencies still won't give you a virtual tour, but also won't agree to rent to you if you haven't visited the rental first. If you like a rental, you can say you're interested and wish to apply. At this point already, you may get rejected because the landlord doesn't want to rent to someone like you. I'll get to that a little bit more. And in that case, if that's the case, you need to start from step 1, obviously. So if you're allowed to apply, you will need to submit all the required documents for review, which would include photo ID, income-related information, confirmation of your visa status, and so on. It's quite thorough. If the landlord won't accept the only type of guarantor you can provide, or for any other reasons, your application may be rejected again. But if accepted, yay, you, you will have to go to the real estate office in person to sign the rental contract. At this point, if you're not fluent in Japanese, they may require a Japanese person to accompany you. If you have a bilingual real estate agent helping you with your search, they should be there with you when signing the contract. The rental contract for every type of housing except the foreigner-friendly options will usually be for 1 or 2 years, renewable unless stated otherwise. Then you pay all the initial fees at the same time you sign the contract or very soon before or after. But you cannot pick up the keys of the rental before the day the contract starts, right? So at the real estate office. When you get the keys, it's a good idea to arrange for the real estate agent to go again with you to visit the premises and take pictures of any damages. We'll talk more about this in the webinar in February. Because private rentals, you are in the question was here, how can I rent a place before moving to Japan? So if you're abroad and you need to secure a place to stay before you move in. So because private rentals, you are in public housing, will require confirmation about your residency status. You will need to have obtained a resident card, and you can only get one after you have moved to Japan. So your best and probably only options is to book a rental. To book a rental before moving to Japan will be to look at the foreigner-friendly agencies, or check with your school or employer if they have some rentals available for the employee or students. And of course, you can have Airbnb as well or hotels. You can also consider renting something short-term while you look for and set up your long-term home. So you don't have the rental you book online doesn't have to be final for long term. So if you plan to rent a fully furnished rental with electricity, internet, and everything set up for you through a foreigner-friendly agency, then I think being in Japan for at least 2 weeks in advance to find a good option and sort out all the paperwork is quite reasonable if you want to go visit in person and things. If you're thinking of renting a non-furnished option, because it includes really nothing. It may include really nothing in there. I would plan a minimum of 2 months to find a place and set up the electricity, gas, water, and buy all the furniture, including lights and curtains. And keep in mind that almost everything will be in Japanese, all the forms. And most people at shops and even various providers don't speak English. Or the person who speaks English is not always in the office. So it can take some time to figure out everything if you don't know your way around yet, where to look, and you're not fluent in Japanese. If you're renting a private rental long term, you should receive a renewal notice about 1 or 2 months before the end date of your contract. You can decide to stay there, in which case you have nothing to do, just pay the renewal fee though, which is usually equivalent to 1 extra month's rent. If you decide to move to another place, plus insurance. If you decide to move to another place, you have to submit a termination notice to the real estate agency. And then you have to move out by the last day of paid rent. I also want to say that after the minimum contract duration has passed, you can move out any month, any day of the month by giving the required advance notice of 1 or 2 months. That will be written in your contract, how much advance notice you're supposed to provide. And your last month of rent will be prorated accordingly, according to the number of days you stayed in the rental. But just be careful if you move 1 day after the renewal date, you'll probably be required to pay the renewal fee. Japanese culture is exceptionally detail oriented, and that's fantastic. But it also means they're also very strict on respecting deadlines. So just keep that in mind. So another question from you. We're getting almost finished. Another 15 slides. So how to avoid being rejected by landlords for not being Japanese? So that's a very good questions, and it's a reality, I'm afraid. Now, mind you, people get rejected for a wide range of reasons, not just because they're foreigners, but some Japanese people can also be rejected if they have a low income or a single mom or a student. So that's common demographics that get rejected. You cannot control what the landlord will accept or not, unfortunately. But you can narrow your search through rentals open to foreigners only. You can certainly start your search with the foreigner-friendly agencies. You can also search among the UR housing and public housing and housing provided by your employer or school. So these should not discriminate you for any of those reasons. And none of these housing options require you to be a Japanese citizen or provide a guarantor. So it's the first places you can search. If you want to broaden your search to private rentals, there are a few websites that include only private rentals open to foreigners. So if you don't want to lose your time, if you go on my website at the link isabelgrenon.com/resources for expats in Japan with slashes, you will see with hyphens, you'll see this page. This is the list of resources that goes with the book, but it's available for free for anyone, anywhere. The list is divided into chapters because it corresponds roughly to chapters in the book. So in chapter 1, if you click on section 1.1.2, the tab will expand and you will see a list like here. So here are some foreigner-friendly agencies. The screenshot here doesn't capture the entire list. You will find more on my website. Also, under section 1.3, you will find the link for the UR housing we talked about. And this is a website recommended by the Japanese government, so I think it might be done by them. And it only includes, they say, only includes rentals open to foreigners. Unfortunately, this website is only available in Japanese at this time. And at the bottom here, you have another website, Wagaya Japan, which also lists only private rentals open to foreigners. So if you don't want to lose your time and energy, I will start with these kind of options. So it gives you a wide range, but it ensures that you don't lose your time with being rejected again and again. Another questions from you, how to find accessible apartment in Japan. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find many websites with the disability access. It's not the common options in the features of a house. I think because there's not many residents that are actually have a good accessibility. But metro residents, you can find them under section 1.2 in this list. You can check a box for finding only rentals that have that are easily accessible. And talking about accessibility, it's relatively common to find home with a ramp in the building entrance, which is not just useful for people in a wheelchair, but also people with a stroller, or in particular. And there's often in the elevators in Japan, often you have a panel at like hip level for a person standing up and has Braille on it, although it will be Japanese Braille, just so you know. Just make sure to confirm there is an elevator. Many older buildings in particular won't have any elevator, even if there are 3 or 4 floors up. The bathroom area, the bath and shower area is often spacious, as in the photo here. This is a typical bath area. You have the bathtub on the right side here, and on the left side, that's where you take your shower directly on the floor. And you see there's a little small stool here. You can sit on this to take your shower. You can also buy like higher stool. You know, there's a range of that. You can buy like a shop at Nitori, like Nitori. The bad news is to get inside a rental, whether it's a house or an apartment, the entrance is often narrow, but also you can see here there's a step to get onto the main floor. This step is typical in pretty much every Japanese homes. Sometimes it's a very small step, sometimes it's a considerable step. But probably we'll be able to add a ramp here in this case, but not always, right? Inside a home, the stairs are usually equipped with the sturdy handrail you see here, but tend to be extremely narrow at times. This one is really narrow. And the space inside the toilet and kitchen and can be quite tight. And the balcony, which is usually where you dry your clothes because there's usually no a dryer machine in Japan. It's very rare. Um, and it can be so you have to step there and you see there's like this kind of big step you have to jump over to get on the balcony. So not good for disability access, actually. Um, Another question, how to find help with rentals in different regions. You have in the list again under 1.1, you will find some agencies, oops, under 1.1, you have some agencies who can help for free or for a fee. And of course, there's others, there's a lot of bilingual real estate agents that can help you across Japan in different areas. In this list, you also find a useful tool to convert Jo and Tsubo into any metrics you're familiar with. It will be linked to information about your legal rights, forms for importing your personal effects duty-free, also forms for importing your pets. By the way, there will be a webinar on how to import your pets to Japan in January. This one will start from 10 p.m. Japan time, so hopefully a better time for those in the US. In Chapter 6, you will find various daily life support in Section 6.1. So you can check that out. And in Chapter 7, there will be moving services. These are local moving services. The international are under Chapter 4. If you're not sure where to start, feel free to contact me, check my book, and register for as many free webinars as you want. Also, be aware that some people have recently reported being scammed by renting a place through someone or some agencies online. The list provided here is not exhaustive, but it should be reliable. So it can be a good starting point. Another question from you, are there areas, particularly in Tokyo, better for foreigners than others? There's no segregation in Japan, so just so you know, which I think it's really great. Some areas are preferred by some foreign nationals, but it depends what they are looking for. So some train stations are popular with some demographics. For instance, Tama Plaza Station is a popular area for families with young children. I think it's Tama Plaza in Kawasaki, actually not Tokyo. While Shimokitazawa here on the picture on the left is very popular with young adults without children for its dynamic nightlife. Some foreigners live near the embassy where they work, and others live near an international school so their children don't have to commute every day. Other popular areas include Roppongi for its luxury shops and some nice parks, Asakusa for its traditional vibe with temples and shrines, Akihabara for fans of anime, and Ikebukuro and Shibuya for their convenience. These are train stations that are many trains go through, so you can go mostly wherever you want from there. Just so you know, a big station like Ikebukuro looks like this. So the station is actually right there. It's not on the picture, but it's on the right side of the person who took the picture. But the residential area, just 10 minutes from there, looks like this. So it looks very different, right? Very different vibe. So it's very convenient. Now, the last questions, I actually dreaded that question, is how to find a pet-friendly shared short-term rental that doesn't require a guarantor. So that's very specific. I didn't talk today much about share accommodations. You can search for share accommodation through actually various groups on Facebook by searching Roommate Finder Japan or Shared Accommodations Japan, which shouldn't require a guarantor. The problem is pets might not be allowed either. Second option for short-term rentals, shared accommodations, or the foreigner-friendly agencies, which don't require a guarantor either. I hear some of them accept pets, but it might be difficult to find one that is both shared and short-term and accept pets. This might be a little tricky. But it's if you're flexible in other criteria like the distance to station and the specific area, and you should be able to hopefully find something. To broaden your search, I will also look at options that are not shared. If the pet-friendly options, it's more likely that a rental will allow pets if it's not a share in the share housing. You can also look at Airbnbs. You'll be surprised some Airbnbs do accept pets and they're short term, but they might not be share. Okay, so you have to check it out. And the Airbnbs in Japan are great. They're very clean, well maintained, and don't require any guarantor. And some owner may be open to let you stay with your pet. I had some. I was hosting an Airbnb in Japan for a long time. So I hope that answers your question. It's very specific. So yeah, the list is there. You can check that list for that. So thank you for attending the webinar today. Feel free to register for more webinars. It's all free, and consult the list of resources as many times as you need. It's also free. And as I mentioned at the beginning, the webinar today is a summary of chapter 1 of the Japan Guide for Renting to Rice Cooking. So just want to acknowledge I'm not plagiarism this book. It's my book. Don't miss the webinar I will be offering in February about your rights, but also your responsibilities as a tenant, which is kind of the continuation of the webinar today, and provide very important information to make sure that you don't get scammed